For us, it's a daily thing.
It's every day, right?
This is Mammoth Daily
We're going to take you inside the locker room
with Mike Fulta.
We want this show to be about the fans, and we want this show to be driven by our Utah Mammoth community.
And Adrian Denny.
Fans can submit what they want to hear us talk about, what they want to hear Utah weigh in on. It's all going to be here.
Here's Mike and AD with you.
Utahns, countrymen, lend me your ears.
Right here on Mammoth Daily.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Monday edition of Mammoth Daily. We have our Monday morning power play coming up in a little bit. I am Mike Fulta, the radio voice of the Utah Mammoth. He is Adrian Denny. We are your Hockey Night in Utah radio crew. And boy, was it fun to be at the Delta Center on Saturday afternoon when the Mammoth took home a 6-3 win over the Seattle Kraken. That was a game that was tied heading into the third, and the Mammoth pulled away. AD, it's always kind of a bummer when we don't have shows immediately following one of these weekend games. We're off on the weekends. We're 9 to 5, Monday through Friday guys. But gosh, sometimes you wish that you could have worked a little overtime just because those games are so much fun to talk about.
It was a great one, Mike, and just love the response from the team in the third period. And we talked to Lawson Crouse during the second intermission, associate captain for the team, who had just relinquished a 3-1 lead in a game where things had been pretty dominant in spurts. But then you look at the spurts where they weren't. Started the game, giving up the goal 69 seconds in, and then scoring shorthanded. Then they're down 5-on-3 for over 90 seconds. They get to the second period, 2 goals in 5 minutes. You're up 3-1. You're in control of the game. You have a power play. Don't score on it. They come back, score. Just over 2 minutes later, they score again. So 3-3. So it wasn't a real happy sheriff at the second intermission when he joined us.
2 quick ones, and we kind of let that get away from us. But now it's 3-3. But we got to go out there and earn it. I think just staying on our toes and. Making plays when they're there, but when they're not there, just getting them in deep. Just playing with speed. I think, that's the way that we've been getting a lot of our chances, and we got to get back to that.
If you're watching on YouTube, that was not a live interview. That audio was not married to the visual. The audio was just played over the highlight of Lawson Crouse scoring. He was not talking to us while he was scoring his 12th goal of the year. But, I love when those guys are honest with us like that, AD. And I thought Crouse was honest in that moment, and you could kind of hear the disappointment and resentment in his voice of the way that second period had ended. And I think we both felt pretty good heading into that third based on that discussion with Crouse, that this group kind of knew the error of their ways and they knew what to do to address it.
Yeah, and we were all thinking about Sunday night against Columbus, which was a pretty similar situation where you fall behind, you tie it, you take the lead, you take a penalty, they tie it, and then third period took a late penalty and they won it in overtime. But I really thought over the course of last week against Toronto, against Dallas, against Seattle, the Mammoth really took a second step forward. The nice wins against Ottawa and St. Louis, but ending the Maple Leafs 11-game or their bid for an 11-game unbeaten streak on Tuesday night, and beating the Dallas Stars for the first time in a third period where you had to go win the period to win the game. And then an afternoon game against Seattle that wasn't perfect. It kind of stopped and started, but coming out in the third period, Utah outshot the Kraken 11-2 and just completely dominated the game and took advantage of situations. 2 goals in 42 seconds, and all of a sudden it's a 5-3 game with a couple late goals before that Barrett Hayton empty netter.
And you got to mention the penalty kill as well, because it hasn't always been perfect the last several weeks. Utah's still top half in the league PK wise, but the penalty kill not as lethal, not as clamped down as we had seen through November and December, but you kill off over a minute and a half worth of 5-on-3 time. And you hear a phrase from coaches a lot of times, AD, if we don't score on a 5-on-3, we probably don't deserve to win the game. And, I didn't hear Lane Lambert's postgame with Seattle, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was kind of the mindset some of the Kraken had, was we had a minute and a half plus of 5-on-3 and we couldn't score. That PK was huge, and that's when things could have really got away from Utah, but instead they steadied the ship. And there were a few moments throughout the game where the boat got rocking a little bit, and it could have gone sideways, and maybe last year it would have gone sideways, but this team kind of stayed the course, maintained the heading, and it never felt like anybody got away from their game throughout that win against Seattle. Like, you're going to miss a shot. You're going to blow an assignment here and there, but it's not going to affect your next shift, and it's not going to affect your kind of mental preparation as you go out and play to the team identity. So that's the difference. And Bear has talked to us about as much. It's not about being perfect. It's about keeping the mistakes to one shift and stacking those good shifts on top of each other to create momentum. And then the avalanche came in the third period when the Mammoth get 3 goals.
And you look at the PK early in the game, Mike. Kevin Stenlund in the faceoff circle. You're already down 1-0, 2:36 in, wins the draw. Cole wins a battle, and back they came 3-on-2 to get a shorthanded goal. They were very, very on top of things and able to exploit Seattle in a number of areas on Saturday, including that situation right there, 11 seconds after they went shorthanded down 1-0. But that's how you practice it. That's what it looks like when we're just standing around watching practice, and you're running drills. And that was a really nice play to tie the game at 1. To your point, just everybody just kind of stayed about their business even when things weren't perfect.
They stole that goal, right? I mean, Cole makes a great play, wins his battle, and Lawson Crouse basically muscles through to Kraken in the Seattle zone. And that's a spot where it's already 1-0. The Kraken could easily add to their lead here. And instead of Seattle adding to their lead, you get one back shorthanded right before you go down at another man at 5-on-3. So that was a huge point in the game very early, obviously, where you basically steal a goal because a couple guys won some individual battles. But it continues this really good homestand, AD. We've been having a ton of fun, calling a lot of goals. We had our NextGen kids that were there.
We did.
We had Parker and Dallas, who, like, I wasn't sure how that was going to go. But like, we had that shorthanded breakaway, and Parker, who was with us, our NextGen broadcaster, a goalie in the Salt Lake area, he just calls the goal. Like we could kind of see the odd man rush coming, and it all happened very quickly, but Parker just went for it. He was, he had been practicing and he knew what to do. And so I just had to get out of the way. But it was Parker calling a couple of goals, and Dallas was calling some goals with me in the second period. Later on, we were both kind of saying he scores, at the same time. So that was a ton of fun, and those two kids did a great job, and they're coming for our jobs. AD, it's only a matter of time until we are replaced.
And we would have had one more NextGen broadcaster with us, but our buddy Topher had a tournament this weekend with the Wasatch Wild 10U team. So we'll have a complete update on that coming up in our local hockey segment on Friday. But tournament has gone well. We'll have the complete wrap with Topher in goal. So you win the game, Mike, 6-3, and you got to stick around for the first star interview with Sarah Merrifield, because it's always a good time, whether it's Karel Vejmelka, John Marino, or in the case on Saturday, Nate Schmidt after a 4-point game.
It just comes down to the mentality of the group in between periods, man. I love how hard our guys are trying to be dialed and detailed in between and just kind of reset our mindset, and it showed here tonight.
You guys are loving this homestand at Delta Center, and I'm sure a big reason is because of the people in this building. What can you say about these fans?
Hey, Saturday in Utah. I mean, wait, no place I'd rather be. You guys are fantastic tonight. Thank you so much for all your support.
That was unbelievable. You're gonna hear that clip a lot, by the way. Saturday night in Utah. Where else would you want to be? That's gonna be on like promos and commercials and things like that. So thank you, Nate Schmidt, for providing that soundbite. He also had a great moment where he shouted out his family. He had his son and his daughter there, and our TV director Chopper was on top of it. So if you don't know, a director is the guy who sits kind of at the keyboard at the control desk in the TV truck, and he's the one saying, "Ready, camera one, take camera one." So he's kind of controlling the flow of the cameras that you're watching on SCG Plus. And Chopper like somehow knew that Schmidt's family was there, and right when Nate Schmidt points out to the stands to where his family's sitting, Chopper cuts to a camera shot of his family that's pointing back at Nate Schmidt. I think it was I don't know if it was his dad or his wife's father was there holding his grandson up, and it was TV magic. It was unreal. We could see it on the monitor in front of us, but that was so much fun to relive.
So, folks, now you know when you're watching the games with Matt, Dom, Kim, Nick, and Sarah that Chopper's back there in the truck saying, "All right, cut 3, go to 3." Cut. That's about as far as I'd get.
We're radio guys. He's got his own podcast as well, Inside the Truck. It's a fantastic show, talking to people all throughout the industry and beyond. We've never been asked to be on. Not surprising. Like I said, we are specifically meant for being outside the truck. But if you want more of an insight into the TV side of things, it's a great show. There's a great pace to it. Like, it's so much fun to listen to. Just a great podcast, but go check that out as well.
Yeah, and with the 3 p.m. game on Saturday, Mike, Nate's kids were there, but a lot of kids. The NextGen game with all the kids helping out with the game presentation, but there's always a lot of energy. There's always a lot of fun in the building for those afternoon games, and I love that, the afternoon games. I led with Andre Cherney on Saturday's hockey night in Utah, talking about you love these games, don't you? That the afternoon game, you just go in, you play the game, and you're not waiting around, and plus you get all the kids not worrying about bedtimes. Well,
and we talk about, we struggle sometimes to wind down after games, right? But
yeah,
I've talked to a lot of players who say the same thing, and it's even more so for them, right? Like, sure, their bodies are tired after a game, but they just played an NHL game. Like, they're mentally pretty wired, and so for a lot of these guys, it takes a while to cool down after these 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock late games, and so they might not get to bed until 1 or 2 o'clock, just because they're so wired. So having these afternoon games basically allows everybody to eat at normal times and go to sleep at normal times, which is not a guarantee in the NHL. I like the later games. I just feel like there's a little bit more build up to it. Everybody's been working all day. You're finally ready to get to the game. It's a little different feel, but the crowd's a little higher pitched in the afternoon games. That is for sure.
Yeah, and so Game 6 in the books for the Mammoth. Now 11 of a possible 12 points on this homestand. Mike, it's an option now. They can take 13 of 14. And for me, at the start of this homestand, I was talking about it on Friday's episode. I've recalibrated my expectations. 5-2 was my goal. 4-2-1, 9 to 14 points. Would have been fine with it. You had some good teams coming in that you hadn't beaten before. But Mike, you get 9 of the first 10, and you have 2 games left over a 6-night stretch. You can recalibrate things a bit. Yeah. Take that next one, and then take that next one, and all of a sudden you got 13 to 14. They just took that next one, and now the Philadelphia Flyers, the final team left on the 7-game homestand. But they've done a good job at taking advantage of teams traveling, teams on back-to-backs, because as we talked about last week, one of my big frustrations is always when you can't take advantage of a team on a back-to-back, a team traveling, because they never let you off the hook. So don't let them off the hook. Go in and take it to them, and that's what the Mammoth have done on this homestand so far to get into that first wildcard spot. I said after the game, Mike, on Tuesday, after the Mammoth beat Toronto, I said, is this going to be the signature game we look at where the Mammoth took a playoff spot in the Western Conference and stayed there for the rest of the year? For me, at that point, with games in hand and such, I thought, okay, this is probably 50-50, just with, you got teams like LA and, Anaheim and Nashville playing when the Mammoth were on off days, but now I feel pretty good about it after coming back, beating the Stars and and beaten Seattle, that Tuesday win against Toronto, that could be a signature game where the Mammoth took one of those playoff spots and didn't give it back the rest of the way.
And you beat a Seattle team that you could be contending with for a wild card spot, and you do it in regulation. So you add another notch to that potential tiebreaker column, regulation wins, and you take 2 points away from Seattle. Now, you look at the games played as we record this on Sunday. Mammoth are tied for the most games played in the NHL, and we knew that, right? We've known that for a while. Mammoth have had a really busy front half schedule where they've played a ton of games. Now, this week, only 2 games this week, which is something we basically haven't seen all year. But with all the space in between games, a lot of these other teams are going to catch up to Utah in the games played department, and so you'll be able to kind of negate that game in hand worry here pretty soon, and we'll have a clearer picture on where these teams match up when they're at level footing in terms of the same amount of games played. Like right now, Utah has 2 more games played than San Jose as we sit here on Sunday, and 1 more than basically the next 5-6 teams down the list below the cut line in the wild card. So that will start to even out as well as we move along in the schedule. But Mammoth getting hot at a really good time, but there's still a long way to go. I mean, we just passed the halfway point of the season a couple weeks ago, right? So we have a ton of games left. There's going to be 25 games after the Olympic break. That seems crazy to me, but that's going to feel like a whole nother season after the Olympic break. That's going to be its own little kind of playoff push. So this is more the dog days right here, but it was around this time last year that Utah failed to make good on this 7-game homestand they had a year ago as well. And they never got above the cut line the rest of the way because Calgary, Vancouver jumped ahead of them. St. Louis hadn't got hot yet. They're still lurking. But the Mammoth just fell behind too many teams. And we've seen some teams also, AD, in the West kind of emerge, like Nashville has been playing better as of late. I know they got clubbed by Vegas the other day. But Nashville's very much in the mix. Anaheim and LA have kind of been going back and forth. They're right below the cut line as we sit on Sunday. They're in the mix, and when you're hot and when you strike gold, you got to keep digging because you never know who's going to get hot, like what we saw last year with St. Louis.
Yeah, Anaheim over the weekend winning a couple games past regulation against LA. They did a home-and-home freeway series. Nashville beat Colorado at home 7-3 on Friday night. First regulation loss of the year for the Avs. Then they went to Vegas on Saturday, lost that game. The best part of the standings, though, Mike, Utah occupying that first wildcard spot right now. They've got the best points percentage, the best winning percentage of any team that they're looking down at. So that kind of can take games in hand out of the factor if you just win your games. If you just go 1 through 16 in the Western Conference, Mammoth have the 6th best record in the West. Seattle occupying the 3rd spot in the Pacific, but Utah has a better points percentage than them, and it's top 3 in each division, and then the 2 wildcard spots. So that's where Utah is behind Minnesota by 12 points.
We got our Monday morning power play coming up. A reminder to get your mailbag questions in as well for tomorrow's Tuesday mailbag. Leave us a comment on YouTube. You can also reach out to us on Twitter at 801 Adrian Denny. That is him. I am at Mike_Folta. Video submissions almost always make the mailbag as long as they are appropriate. So we heavily solicit video submissions as well. We've had some great ones so far this season. Would love some more. But AD, real quick before we get to our power play, you mentioned the freeway series in LA. I would love to see more home and homes like that. I know it's not possible for everybody, but it makes it feel a little bit more like a playoff series, or even you think of like an MLB 3-game series, right? By the end of the series, you're sick and tired of the other team. I would love to see more home and homes like that.
It's what you just said, Mike. The intensity, the competition, seeing a team over and over. We've seen a couple 2-game series in the NHL in the last month. We had
Chicago and LA.
Chicago and LA. There's been one in the last week, I think. I know in the NBA, the Jazz just played 2 straight games at Dallas. So it's not totally common. It became a little more common during the COVID years, the bubble years, when travel was a little more restricted and a little tougher to do. But of course, LA and Anaheim play home and homes, and they just share points one after another in them with Anaheim getting 4 and LA getting 2. Kings are winless in their last 3 games, and they've all gone past regulation. LA has, you look at them, Mike, they haven't strung together a lot of wins, but they've strung together points in 10-game bunches. They've pretty much stayed in the same place the whole year.
Yeah, and that keeps you in the mix. That buys you time, right? And just getting to overtime is something that you have to be okay with, especially when you don't have your best. Like, okay, guys, we got a point here today. Like Utah against Columbus, we weren't at our best. We got a point, and that matters, because as we saw last year between Calgary and St. Louis, every point means something, because we know it's going to come down to just a game or two. Isn't that crazy? Play 82 games, and it always comes down to like one game at the end, and that decides who goes home and who has a chance to play for the Stanley Cup.
That's why you lose a game in overtime after you had a lead. It hurts, because you know that at some point you got to make up for it in a game that you weren't necessarily scheduled for. Mike, you want to come back?
Yeah.
Top 5 stories of the week, our Monday morning power play. We'll get things going right there. Coming up next on Mammoth Daily.
Get ready for the Monday morning power play.
Time for your Monday morning power play here on Mammoth Daily. We have our top 5 storylines of the week. And AD, we're going to snap it around the offensive zone after a clean face-off win. I will let you start things out at the point.
Let's start at the beginning of the 2026 calendar year. Mammoth opened the season up on Long Island, beat the Islanders 7-2. I texted you before the game, Mike. It was the first game of 2026. I texted you scheduled win, implied win, or must win for the Mammoth. They were coming off a loss coming out of Christmas to Nashville, the 1-0 loss to Colorado. Didn't want to lose 3 straight. At that point, they were 1 game under 500, and they came out of the gates, beat the Islanders 7-2, went into New Jersey. Didn't win that one, but came home with 2 out of 3 on that trip with the overtime win at MSG. They're 7-1-1 in January, Mike. Most points in the NHL after the game on Saturday night in the month of January. 34 goals, second most in the NHL. And that's all we could have hoped for coming out of Christmas there. Take 2 of 3 on that trip. That made the trip. You've gotten home, and Utah's been able to take advantage of the points on the line at the Delta Center. So my number 1 story entering the week is Utah's start to January so far, and a chance to make it 13 out of 14 points on the homestand by going 6-0-1 on Wednesday with Philly.
Already more points in January than you had in all of November, all of December. So great start so far for the Mammoth, and they've done it in January all without arguably their most exciting player on offense in Logan Cooley, who we're expecting to get back after the Olympic break in February. I'm going to ride your coattails a little bit. You mentioned January. You're talking about kind of, the calendar a little bit. I'm going to go with Utah's scheduled transition here. We've been riding high on this 7-game win streak, 7-game homestand for the Mammoth, of which so far they've won 5 of 6. You mentioned all the points we have. That's 11 out of 12 possible points. The schedule for the Mammoth is about to turn from favorable to unfavorable. We've mentioned Utah taking advantage of some scheduling spots from other teams. Ottawa and St. Louis came in and they had backup goalies in because either their other goalie was out or it was the start of a back-to-back for them. Toronto comes in on the second game of a back-to-back. They played in overtime the night before. Dallas played their 3rd game in 4 days on the road, end of a road trip for them. Seattle, they're at the end of a road trip as well. And it had been a tough road trip for them with a bunch of travel starting out east, going west. Columbus, were they on a back-to-back as well?
Yeah, they
Wasn't-
were coming from Denver.
Yes. So all the teams you've played here have been at scheduled disadvantages as they've come into the Delta Center during this 7-game homestand. That's advantage Utah, and you have to take it. You have to take advantage of that, right? You don't just show up and earn 2 points. You have to play and win. Utah has, so you get credit there. But it's about to get harder, and the schedule's about to work against you if you're the Mammoth. You do have some nice rest, which is good and important, but this road trip, after we play Philly on Wednesday, when the Mammoth head out east, you're going to play 4 games in 6 days, and there's going to be some really good teams in there. There's going to be a hungry Nashville team that you roll into. Mammoth should be rested for that. But then you've got a back-to-back, Tampa, and then the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. And then a couple nights later, you have the Carolina Hurricanes, who are at the top of the Metro Division. So those last 2 games are going to be tough, where you're in Sunrise playing the defending champs, second game of a back-to-back, and then you're playing your 3rd game in 4 nights against a Hurricanes team that can overwhelm you in waves under Rob Ridemore. So the schedule is about to turn a little bit here against Utah. Not quite what we saw in November, where there was a really big crunch, but still, it's going to be a transition from a schedule that's in your favor to a schedule that is an uphill climb.
All right, Mike, number 3 story of the week, the line changes. And just 2 little tweaks. Just popped Daniil Boot down with J.J. Paterka and Barrett Hayton, and popped Dylan Gunther with Jack McBain and Michael Carcone, and it resulted, Mike, in the Mammoth outscoring the opposition 12-5, 5-on-5. That line of Carcone, McBain, and Gunther got 5 goals. The line of Keller, Schmaltz, and Crouse got 5 goals. The line of Paterka, Hayton, and Boot got 2 goals for the Mammoth. Again, outscoring the opposition 12-5 in those 3 games. Nice little tweak there by head coach Andre Turdy right before the Toronto game, but it got things rolling into a really nice 3-0 week.
Yeah, no doubt. I love it. You're talking about the lines. I'm going, as we move along in our Monday morning power play, I'm going with the offense from the defense. Now, speaking of lines, on Saturday, we had Utah get caught in a change while they were on offense with the puck in the offensive zone, and yet they still somehow scored. Usually when you get caught in a change, the puck's going the other way and the other team has a scoring chance. The Mammoth caught themselves in a line change. There was a queue at the bench while guys were trying to get off. And the Mammoth just had 2 guys in the offensive zone, Nate Schmidt and John Marino. Schmidt causing havoc. Kraken turned it over, and Keller finds Schmidt in the slot. It was hard not to laugh during that, because we're both thinking, AD, like, what did we just witness here? Before we get to like my point, were you like laughing as hard as I was when you saw that? Because Schmidt and Marino are like, wait a minute. You ever seen what's the movie? Pulp Fiction. And John Travolta gets into the house and he's kind of looking around like, hello? That's what Marino and Schmidt were doing, but it worked out.
It was a great job by the Mammoth and a questionable job by Seattle in their defensive zone, as they had all 5 guys in there watching John Marino and Nate Schmidt play catch while Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, and Lawson Crouse made their way onto the ice, as you see Hayton and Boot hopping off there with Carcone, and here comes Clayton Keller and his group, and Clayton Keller about ready to take charge. For those of you on YouTube, there's Nate Schmidt just wide open. It's another instance, Mike. Whenever you give up a 5-on-5 goal, if you're the defending team, you could always go back and find something that went wrong, and there was some things that went wrong there for Seattle. And then 42 seconds later, Lawson Crouse would take advantage of some more stuff that went wrong for the Kraken and make it 5-3.
So bringing up, Utah getting offense from its defensemen, Mammoth have had points from defensemen in 17 of 21 games now, going back a few weeks. Mammoth have a top 5 assist percentage on goals they've scored this year. So that tells you that a lot of the Utah offense is driven by their defense core relative to the rest of the league. Let's get to a clip here from Nate Schmidt. He was talking a couple days ago after morning skate about this group and the defensemen chipping in on offense.
You know what? I think one part of it is you got to train your forward group to get to the net front, because our guys right now, we're getting our pucks through. I think that's a big one. I think if you're not, and the forwards start to kind of try and break off and trying to make some more plays up in the higher part of the zone. If you train them by saying, "Hey, we're going to get it there for you. Just get there for me, please, and we'll get it to you." It helps everybody out in that sense, and it creates such a different a look for our offense in the Arizona.
So there is Nate Schmidt talking about creating offense from the back end, and a lot of it has to do with the forwards going right to the net and the defensemen sending pucks immediately. Watch the last few goals, especially go back to the Dallas game. Utah off the rush. When Nick Schmaltz scores, Marino shoots from the wing, but Schmaltz is driving the net off the rush and is able to get that tip because he beelines it for the front of the cage. That was a couple games ago against the Stars. Mammoth have been getting a lot of chances like that, and even off the cycle when they're in the offensive zone, the forwards going immediately to the net and allowing the defensemen to shoot quicker. And when the defensemen hold on to pucks, oh, here we go, if you're watching on YouTube. So this is a chance off the rush. Keller kind of lays it back, and look at Schmaltz with the net drive. Goes right to the cage. There's not a play to be made there, right? Like he's not looking for space. He's going right to the net, and Marino gets that puck immediately to the front. When defensemen hold on to pucks, it allows the shooting lanes to clog. It allows the defense to get set. You know when you get frustrated with the power play because the puck's not moving very quickly, the PK is always set. That can happen at 5-on-5 when the defenseman can't, or don't shoot the puck quickly. They hang on to it. They dust it off at the point. Schmidt's talking about shooting pucks immediately as the defense is still arranging themselves in the defensive zone and having the forwards at the net to create as well. So that pairing, Adrian, Schmidt and Marino, unreal this year, and they keep getting better and better. I discovered this from our friends at Money Puck the other day, but Schmidt and Marino are plus 27 together. They're the highest rated. They have the best plus minus out of any pair or forward combination this year in the National Hockey League. Now, plus minus is what it is. It's not the end all be all. I'm not saying that, but it's pretty impressive that Schmidt and Marino have been on the ice for more goals for at 5-on-5 at even strength than any other pair or line in the league, and they have a better plus minus than any other pair or line in the league.
If you look at the NHL's plus minus, right? Top 10 guys in the NHL in plus minus. 7 of the top 10 players are from Colorado. 2 players from Utah, John Marino, Nate Schmidt, and a player from Tampa Bay. It's not too bad. That's pretty good. Yeah. Plus, Mike, you talk about offense from the defense. Schmidt and Marino have 3 of Utah's game-winning goals in the last 7 games.
Yeah, and my favorite thing too, Adrian, is that they are producing offense without creating more risk defensively, right? It's just what Nate Schmidt said. They're making quicker decisions in the offensive zone. They're not like rushing up the ice to bail in their own end and try and create a play. They're not leaving themselves exposed. They're still able to take care of the defensive side while creating offense and just being more efficient and effective at creating that offense. So been loving the offense from the defense led by Schmidt and Marino. Excuse me. We know that Sergachev and Terse have great offensive upside as well. But it's been fun to watch this group get a ton of production and scoring chances generated by the back end.
All right, Mike. Clayton Keller, the captain for the Mammoth, as we saw on that Nate Schmidt goal, continues to pick up primary assists. And a primary assist is the last pass before the goal. And on this homestand, Clayton Keller has 9 assists in 6 games, and 8 of the 9 have been primary assists. The last pass before the goal coming from the captain, as it was right here as Utah took the lead for good in the 3rd period on Saturday night.
Yeah. Yeah, and they haven't been fluffy plays either, AD. They've been hard plays where a lot of times he's had to win a battle or make a really crisp feed with authority across the ice, and he's capable of doing that. He's one of the best passers in the division, in the conference, and in the NHL, and that's why he's headed to Milan coming up in a couple weeks.
Okay, so that was number 5. That's your Monday morning power play, folks. Top 5 stories entering the week. Mike, when we come back, third period, you want to take a look at some playoff odds? That's fun. It's always fun when the odds are looking good for you to look at the odds. We'll come back. We'll take a look at playoff odds when we roll back here on Mammoth Daily.
This is Mammoth Daily.
Rolling on here on your Monday edition of Mammoth Daily. Another storyline we could have got to, Adrian, is Karel Vejmelka, who's now won, 6 in a row, tying a career high. Can't look past Utah's goaltending and how good Veggie has been. The only reason he wasn't on the Monday morning power play is because we could probably put that there every week. But just wanted to shout out Karel Vejmelka. Also, Adrian, I have my Elliot Friedman alerts on here on my phone. I don't know if you saw this, but as we're recording on Sunday, Rasmus Andersson looks like he's going to be traded from the Calgary Flames to the Vegas Golden Knights. So he stays in the Western Conference, and it looks like I believe Calgary is going to retain 50% of Andersson's salary as well. That was a big trade piece that rumors were swirling around for a lot of the year, and he's going to be a Golden Knight, it looks like. We'll talk more about that, but what's your flash reaction, AD? We'll get to the full breakdown tomorrow, but what's just your gut reaction?
You had heard that they had an agreement last summer or were close to it, right? You'd always heard that Vegas was probably the top team to get Rasmus Andersson because, number one, he was willing to play there. And he had some stipulations. So taking the deal to Vegas and Calgary, I guess, got what they wanted. In the trade, no extension, it appears, as of yet, for Rasmus Andersson with Vegas, but I'm sure the Golden Knights are pretty comfortable in that. They don't lose too many guys to free agency unless they give them the little, hey, you want to go for a walk? I don't think we have any cap space left for you.
So this is the Frank Saravalli tweet. Flames get Zach Whitecloud a first. How does Vegas have any first left?
Yeah, when is that?
Exactly.
2082?
And Zach Whitecloud a first and a second and a rights to a prospect. That second could become a first round pick if Vegas goes on to win the cup. But some interesting stuff there in the Western Conference. Rasmus Andersson, puck moving defenseman, goal scoring defenseman, going to the Golden Knights. So the Pacific Division just got a little bit tougher than it already was. Vegas got even better. So the rich get richer, it seems. But Adrian, we think of Vegas as one of these teams that has a chance to win the Stanley Cup. Certainly, we expect them to be in the postseason. Utah has set up expectations to be in the postseason this year, holding onto a wild card spot as we sit right now. I checked out moneypuck.com, fun analytics site, MoneyPuck and Natural Stat Trick, the two that I like to use. And what do you know, on their playoff pie chart, I see the Utah Mammoth with a pretty big Mountain Blue slice, and Money Puck gives Utah a 74% chance to make the postseason. How about that?
Yeah, it looks like LA and Seattle are the third place in the Pacific, and the other wild card. They have San Jose slipping out at 31.6%. The Sharks haven't really slipped at all. And you've heard a lot that in terms of scheduling and in terms of 5-on-5 play with analytics, Mike, that they're not, very good in those metrics and those departments. But they've got Seattle, LA, the other two teams in the Pacific, and Utah with that really nice chance there. 73.9% on January. What are we today? 19th. That's a good spot to be in.
That's a great spot to be in. You look at the teams that are close to the Mammoth in that percentage window of around 74, 75%. Montreal is right there at 75%, but that seems to be kind of like a line of demarcation. There's some teams that are in the 90s that it's almost certain they're going to make it. Colorado's at 100, by the way. They have already clinched their playoff berth, apparently, according to Money Puck. But like the Colorados, the Dallases of the world, the Tampa Bays of the world are up in the 90s. And then there's a bunch of teams in the 50s and 60s. There aren't a lot of teams in that 70 range, which that's a pretty high percentage, Adrian, for a team that's in a wild card spot. But maybe it's not surprising considering the Central Division, and it seems like it's going to be impossible to catch the top three, Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota. But the analytics like Utah, and that shouldn't be surprising because the Mammoth have been a really good analytic team all year.
Behind Utah in the Central, Nashville at 28.4%. And, all this stuff, Mike, takes into consideration playing the most road games through New Year's, playing the most games through New Year's, what's coming up, strength of schedule, home games. So Utah's been in a pretty decent spot on these throughout the year, but 73.9% is a new high watermark. We're about, 49 out of 82. That's almost 60% of the way through the season.
Surprised you couldn't do that on your abacus. Let's see here. out of 82, 49. Yeah, look at that. 59.75. You can't get much closer. Well done. Again.
There we go. Mike, let's dive into analytics more coming up. Let's lead off the show tomorrow on some stuff, because we talk about under the hood numbers a lot and what the analytics say, and it sounds like a lot of magic potions in a lot of areas, but we haven't had a chance to really dive in. So we want to get into that Tuesday.
I guess. And this is important because it can give you an image as to what the team is really good at, what they struggle at. It can also give you perspective on how the team's performing regardless of results. Results can lie to you. The scoreboard can lie to you. And we've seen it throughout the year with the Mammoth. Sometimes Utah's played really well and hasn't got the result. Sometimes the Mammoth have been the second best team on the ice, but won by a couple goals. And that's hockey. It's a random game. But the analytics, that's kind of how we harness improvement throughout an 82 game season when you can't control the bounce of a puck on a flat, slippery surface all the time. The analytics are how we get better looking at these large sample sizes over big swaths of time. So can't wait for that, AD. It's also our Tuesday mailbag. Again, submit your questions. And also, I should say, thank you to everyone who submitted food recommendations with my parents in town. We had a ton of great suggestions. You know where we went, Adrian, for lunch on Sunday? We went to Desert's Edge, which was fantastic. It was suggested, we had been there before, but someone had come up and suggested that to us as well. Had a wonderful lunch at Desert's Edge. So thank you for all the write-ins. Those were all taken into account. Sometimes I struggle with planning a little bit, and having some fallbacks certainly helped.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. Like that was a fun Friday afternoon to read all the YouTube replies, to get the Twitter replies. Catherine Bogart, who was with us on the program from UtahMammoth.com, said she had some pop into her timeline from being tagged on our tweets too, and she enjoyed it too as a new resident of Salt Lake City. So you not only helped Mike, you helped Catherine. Mike, fun episode, Monday Morning Power Play. Some days between games, we've got some time to catch up. So we'll get right into analytics because, again, like the playoff numbers we just looked at, they are very, very favorable and very, very strong for the Utah Mammoth in terms of just their overall body of play, in addition to the scoreboard right now, which has been a lot of fun.
Can't wait. AD, got a lot to get to tomorrow, and that is when we will see you right here on YouTube or however you're listening on podcast. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Tuesday mailbag right here on Mammoth Daily.